Welcome, everybody. We are here to talk about the updates that the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council that we've made to our strategic action plan. We wanted to have a simplistic um, document to move forward with to help us with grant writing and to really focus some of our goals, as well as during this, after we talk about our SAP, I'll go over our work plan and kind of some of the big projects that we have going on.
Yeah. So you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, great. Hey, everybody. Thank you. Thank you all for joining today. I know a few more folks have RSVP'd, so hopefully they'll join us in progress. It looks like there's a few more folks poking their head in. So I think I know just about everybody on the call, but just for reference, I'm Andy Magi. I'm the president of the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council Board. So I'm really lucky. I get to work with Rochelle all the time. I know a lot of you get to work with Rochelle too, so we're very lucky to have her and the team that we have at the council. And I also just want to highlight real quick that we have Nicole Ferreira on the call with us, secretary of the council board. And Amber, I'm going to flag that you are also a board member as well as part of the Columbia Soil and Water Conservation District. And you might be, you can decide when you're going to have what hat on in this call, but also want to recognize that Amber is here and she's recently joined our board. And then also from the staff, Sophie Verdorn, who I think a lot of you work with as well. So that's our team on the call. So as Rochelle mentioned, one of the things we wanted to walk through today and hopefully get some feedback on and just some opportunity for dialogue around this is really walk you through what we the updates and sort of the direction that we think we're heading in terms of strategic action around protecting and promoting the health of the Scappoose Bay watershed. I think some of you may have heard some of this before, even been part of some of the discussions that led to this. And so just the first couple things that I want to do real quick today are walk through what the major components are, how we've sort of structured the plan, and then go into specific details about what falls under each sort of section. And to that end, how are we doing what we are saying we want to do in our strategic action plan? So the board earlier this year decided that we would break up our strategic action efforts into 4 sort of major strategies, we're calling them. And this is like, what are the big things? What are the big factors that we want to address as we approach the health of the watershed over the next 5 years, I think is what these typically go. And then underneath each of those strategies, we've developed a set of goals, and that really lays out the specific outcomes, sort of what does this look like if we're successful in advancing these strategies. And then a set of tactics, what are the specific things that we think we can do over the next 5 years, where like the specific, if you're looking to check boxes, what might those boxes be in terms of helping us get there? And then we broke those down into short-term actions, right? If you start to think of this as like, what's all the things we have to happen and do over 5 years, things get very overwhelming very quickly. And so we sort of looked at what can we do over the first sort of short chunk of this plan, and then we'll every year we have a meeting and we take a look at this and say, what have we done? What have we made progress on? Is it time to add another sort of set of tactics to the next little bit of time? And then Rochelle will really hone in on what that's looking like right now and the work she's doing with all of you and sort of the work that she's planning on doing to help move this forward. So strategic action plan, this is just more of a real refresher. Strategy is rooted in mission. And our mission is to promote and support a healthy watershed through projects that protect and restore native fish, wildlife, plants, and by working with the community to educate and encourage participation in enhancing and enjoying their natural surroundings. So that is like, oh, I copied this twice. It's not.
Andy, did you wanna share your slides?
Oh, am I not sharing my slides?
No.
Oh my gosh. This is just, I'm just reading things to you guys then. That is not what we wanted to do. I'm sorry. Let's share that.
There you go.
Here it is. So now you can see that I just copied this into the slide twice. It is not that long, but I think this is like, again, the core of what we do. And this has not changed much. I don't think we kind of looked at this and said, maybe there's like some wording or things like that, that we could do to enhance or make this different, but the work remains the same. This is what the last 5 years were about. And the 5 years before that, this is what watershed councils do. And we're excited to do that work. Okay, I just real quick try to get a little feedback into this. When you think about the mission of the Watershed Council as advisory members, what components of this resonate for you? What are like, is there something in here you look at and you're like, man, this really is a piece that I am most concerned about, or work that I think I like to help the watershed advance? Don't all raise your hands at once, but if anyone wants to raise their hand, please. Otherwise, I might pick on Chip. I might ask Chip, what does he like about our mission? He works with a lot of watershed councils.
Well, the core of everything is to try to create a landscape, a watershed landscape that supports the species that we've desperately wanted to support and watched kind of a slow decay in some of that. So we want to change that measure and change the sort of public attitude towards why this is important. That's my view.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Chip. I think that's one of the things that you'll see as we talk about these strategies. One of the areas that I think we are looking for input on, which is how do we have, where are the opportunities in the community to have those conversations, right? I think we got a lot of really firm ideas about what the restoration needs are and how to think about our project scoping and prioritization and things like that. But we know we need to engage and we want to engage. And I think we have a lot of, our staff is often out in the community, but like how and what we should be talking about and where are other opportunities, I think is a place we'd love some feedback on. So thanks. Anyone else?
I can speak on the behalf of us being a municipality, excuse me, all these things are important, of course, but the one big thing to us would be a water source, a clean water source that we can pull from, a clean water source that, we can provide for our citizens. And that's our big ticket in it all. I think the invasive species is a big thing, but I think overall, the health and safety of our citizens is the biggest. So that would be our concern here on the city side.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. Healthy watershed helps with a lot of that, right? Like less sure does. So I appreciate that. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I think we got a lot of questions around monitoring and water quality and things like that. We're collectively with all of our partners trying to help figure out. So super cool. Great. So as I said earlier, we initially kind of put our strategic action plan into 4 primary strategies, and then we attached goals to each of those. And so those primary strategies that we really want to advance is to protect. Hold on, Okay, protect, restore, preserve, educate, and engage. Protect really. So just walk through these real quick. We'll talk about the goals in a minute. Just talk through these real quick. Protect is really about looking at what exists that is healthy and saying, how can we put some buffers around it to make sure that it stays that way, right? The easiest restoration work is a restoration project you don't have to do because it's like already intact. So that's looking at where do we have healthy habitats? Where do we have cold water refugia? Where do we have high functioning ecosystems, good stream habitat health, all those things that make up a healthy watershed? Where do those exist? And then how do we work with partners across the spectrum to make sure that those things are protected for the future, right? So we're not doing more damage. We're putting some things and then building off of those things. And that's the restore component, which includes connection. So it's not just restoring stream function and habitat, but that also includes like reconnecting pockets of these healthy habitats that we've sort of said are really important. How do we connect them to really start developing larger function across, wider swaths of the watershed council, so that those other goals around fish and habitat and wildlife and access, people, clean water, all those things we can really get moving on. So that's like protect and restore really work together, right? It's protect the best places and then work to restore and reconnect the places that are close to those or could be connected to those to build out bigger bigger chunks. Preserve. This really is about our work with the cities and the municipalities and the counties about how are we helping support their efforts to maintain natural spaces. I think it does speak to protect a little bit, but it is like another bucket, right? So we have IGAs with the city of Scappoose. We've had IGAs with the city of St. Helens. We hope to do more of that, partner with the county. You see us in parks and natural areas. We help with their projects, and we're helping with permitting on a number of priorities and things like that. So this is really how are we helping preserve the natural areas across the watershed, and working with our government partners on those, and then educate and engage. And that is primarily, that is like Chip, as you said, like we can't do this work without the community and the support and knowledge of the community. And so how do we engage that? How do we educate that? How do we get people thinking about their watershed? And then how do we increase partnership with the groups that we work with on a regular basis, so that we're doing more of the stuff that we all want to do together, and sort of just helping expand through more hands doing, what is it? Many hands make light work. I don't know that the work will ever be light, but I know that the more of us who are working together, the more that we can do. So those are sort of the 4 strategies. And then each of those strategies has some goals attached to those, right? And this is really like, what are things looking like? So looking at protect. First goal, protect areas with existing intact cold water refuges, areas of high quality habitat characteristics, or provide unique opportunities to connect the community with the natural world or learn about the watershed. Goal 2, limit the introduction and spread of invasive plant species and reduce the presence of existing invasive species in that watershed. So again, we need to spend time identifying what these areas are. We need to spend time thinking through how we can limit future fragmentation or reduction of critical habitat. And I think we're really intrigued by the idea. We're really thinking a lot about cold water, especially as we start to think about what future climate conditions and weather patterns might look like into the future. Where are those like must-have areas that are really going to impact fish habitat that will remain intact for many years to come, right? So understanding that is part of that. We'll talk about that. Restore, connect and expand cold water refugia and areas of other high quality habitat characteristics, and improve access to these areas for fish and wildlife. Again, you identify the best areas, and then you start to reconnect those areas that are impaired or have limitations. And this is our like tried and true restoration work. This is like the stuff that you see Rochelle out in the field doing and building momentum towards all the time. I'm really excited about our work. That has been, I think, a real core of what we've been working on over the last several versions of these strategic action plans. So preserve, work with cities and counties and other government entities to ensure that existing natural resources are managed in a way that supports the health of the watershed. And then also, I think equally importantly, in a place we're really interested in trying to learn more about and develop strategies around, enlist private land and property owners in long-term stewardship of private conservation or project sites that support the health of the Scappoose Bay watershed. We've done so many projects as the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council. We can't be on every project indefinitely to ensure that they remain functional and intact and everything that we set out to do is done. And so it's how do we work? How do we maintain relationships with property owners where we've done work to ensure that those projects remain intact and functioning and helping support the health? That's I think a big question for us moving forward. Most of our projects are done on private property in this watershed, and so private property owners are incredibly important to the success of our efforts. A couple goals around educate and engage: increase awareness of the community and their watershed, develop deeper partnerships, find opportunities and greater engagement with the Scappoose Bay Watershed Advisory Council, and build meaningful partnerships to increase the use of traditional indigenous knowledge or traditional environmental knowledge in the protection and restoration efforts of the Scappoose Bay watershed. So again, that idea of educating the public and then enlisting support from across the community to really help go deeper where we have those opportunities to develop more projects, more support, really just helping people understand. And then I think another big piece of this is helping people understand the value of functioning water or aquatic ecosystems in their community, You know, again, thinking through, and this might speak to preserve, but, you know, better functioning streams help control flooding, help support high water quality for drinking, provide opportunities for access to natural spaces. So there's an incredible amount, not just of like public safety and resilience to disaster that these natural systems provide, but there's also some economic opportunities that come with keeping them intact and providing access, being able to provide access to them. All right. Sorry, it's put its little participation bar like right across where I need to. Okay, there we go. So let's talk a little bit about tactics for each goal. And then I think when we talk about the tactics, what is resonating? I'll go back to that what is resonating for you question. Unless anyone has any questions about our strategies or goals. Is there like a strategy missing? Do you think there's something else we should be looking at? Hopefully the tactics will go to answering some of those questions, but all right. Protect, 5-year tactics. So again, goal 1, protect those areas that exist, that are already intact, that already have the type of habitat functionality that we like to see in our streams and aquatic ecosystems. So this is really about continuing to build a working relationship with local governments and community leaders. So Scappoose Bay Watershed to position us as thought partners and a source of information about what makes a healthy watershed, and strategies that cities and counties may take up to protect those things. We include in this developing an understanding of current and future land use activities in the watershed that have or will likely have some sort of impact on the watershed. And that includes increasing the awareness of and attention to natural resources in community development and planning. So understanding where those things might brush up against each other, protecting natural resources and ecosystem services, and also community development needs. So understanding that and then trying to work together to develop methods or planning or restoration activities that can help community and ecosystem work and flourish together. So that, you know, understanding best practices in land use and how you mitigate some of those things, and looking at county planning, zoning practices, and city and county codes. And so again, going back to the idea, it's not just about municipalities or private or public lands. Research and develop strategies for private landowners to restore and then include important habitat to support protected habitats into the future. So that's number 1. And then number 2, limit the introduction and spread of invasive species to reduce the presence of existing invasive species in the watershed. So I think this is an area that, again, many of you have worked with us on. I think we have a lot of success in this area. But so it's really about building on that in terms of what we hope to accomplish over the next 5 years. Continue to build a program of invasive species eradication focused on locations considered highly sensitive and where those species are likely to be able to be controlled. And then continue to raise awareness and local knowledge. Again, the notion that if everyone has awareness about this, they can help identify where these species may be growing, so we can target treatments and our programs aimed at eliminating them. So we know that the best way to prevent spread is to get ahead. And so that's really what that's about. So open it again to any questions, or is there one of these tactics that really like resonates, or is there something that like, when I see this goal, I automatically think of X, Y, and Z. How come you all didn't think of X, Y, Z? What's missing?
Andy, I'll chime in here. First of all, the having a better understanding of climate modeling, I think, is absolutely necessary. And I'm wondering if you guys are going to think about a feedback loop of where you take that information once it's done, and then bring it back to some of the decision makers and policy folks, to at least so they have an understanding about how maybe some of their future reactions might influence that.
You know,
go ahead.
Yeah, Jim and Rochelle or Nicole, please feel free to jump in. I think this is a really good point, Jim. And I think how that feedback goes into this, this bucket is maybe not, is like a really good point and not something that's articulated here. We really, for that sort of analysis, it lives a lot in the restoration bucket, like understanding what the future is going to look like so that when we make a decision about a restoration project, it's a restoration project that's going to have an impact, a meaningful impact, like not just today, but well into the future, right? That the resilience of these projects and these habitats is something we're thinking a lot about. But I like the idea of, as we develop that understanding, then it helps us prioritize projects and make project decisions that like we're sharing that information, right, at the local level as well.
Yeah, and let me chime in here because I think where you're getting at with that modeling and like then bringing that back to the table, we do have plans to do that. We've been working on a shade analysis. There's been limited like LiDAR in the area of like for the veg layers, and Sophie is a little bit more knowledgeable about that, but we are trying to finish that analysis and then taking that analysis and then focusing right that climate lens on that, and then we do plan to take that to all of our partners and the community to discuss those areas that are going to be like most priority, as well as other modeling that we're hoping to uh do as well. But we definitely do. We want to continue to have like open dialogue and open conversations when it comes to like findings, and also just like looking at different data that we're, you know, looking at and getting.
I think that's great. And sharing it with the community and your partners, I think is really awesome. It really at least opens people's eyes to what conditions might be like in the future. The second one I will mention real quick, and you, as you mentioned your shade analysis, have you ever thought about um, estimating what percentage of your watershed is in ash trees? And the reason I say that is because, you know, EAB is probably what, 20, 30 miles from you. It takes a while for it to spread. In maybe 5 years, you can move it and check it out down the road. But that's just something to consider as I'm seeing a lot of folks starting to actually do some conversion of ash stands. And so it's just a thought.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. I'll get into a little bit of with one of our partnerships with West Multnomah, we're in talks about creating like our action plan with in regards to EAB and MOB for the Mediterranean oak borer as well, because we also have a lot of oak in our watershed as well as ash. Getting that percentage is good. I just wrote that down. That's something I can talk with our team about. We have already started doing interplanting of some of the recommended species as well within some of our waterways. We want to make a greater push for that. So we're looking at funding sources, but we do have strong partnerships, and so we're starting those conversations and also going to be creating like an action plan for those things as well. That's currently in the works.
All right. Any other thoughts before we move to restore?
I'll just, do you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, Dave.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I was just gonna say, just on the protect, I'm sure you guys will be talking about this, but something I'm always, that just came up yesterday is, you know, like water rights and all that and protecting the water, you know, how do we potentially get more in-stream water rights, potentially protecting land around properties around the stream, you know, looking ahead, are there ways we could work with municipalities, other folks, and then along with that, like riparian ordinances and things like that. I think that's something that's always a, you know, a big factor in the development piece. So I'd love to, look into that a little more on top of all the large wood restoration, passage stuff we do.
I would love to be a part of those conversations. I think since I've started, water rights are so tricky, and like knowing water rights, and we get those questions, you know, from landowners weekly.
Yeah.
So I'd love to figure that out with you.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not an expert on that, but we do have staff in our headquarters office that can help if questions come up about water rights and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could definitely tee that one up for a later point.
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks for your insight, everyone. Protect. Next steps. What? Oh yeah, this is like the shorter term stuff. This is what we're doing right now. So, and Rochelle will get more into these in her work plan, but we want to discuss the strategic action plan with local governments and provide regular updates on our work to city councils and county commissions. Review, update, understanding of the historic, current, and future land uses of the watershed. A lot of that analysis was done in our 2018 update. And, you know, quite honestly, aside from like new needs, a lot of the like what has impacted the watershed really hasn't changed. And so just kind of adding to the analysis that we already have, incorporate information about the impacts of land use activities into our outreach materials, and develop a watershed specific understanding of relevant modeling to better understand future conditions in the Scappoose Bay watershed. I think Jim, and that's sort of what you're getting at in terms of helping better understand what, when we say relevant modeling, we're talking about climate modeling or weather modeling and things like that. So, and how that might shape decision making going forward. And then looking at addressing goal 2, identify priority species and geographic area that can be addressed with measurable results, secure continued funding for established invasive species eradication programs. And we're always on the plant side, you know, this is where our nursery can really come in, and our work with students at Scappoose High School and helping them better understand plant propagation and science and needs out in the community. So that's a really important growing bit of work, continuing to invest in that. All right, now restore. Connect and expand cold water refugia and areas with other high quality habitat characteristics and improve access to these areas for fish and wildlife. It's very straightforward. Again, this is like our bread and butter. I love, this is like the stuff we all know and love. Reconnect upper and lower stream segments with connection to cold water refugia and habitat by removing barriers. Reconnect floodplains where they connect or expand cold water. Increase stream and habitat complexity to create more in-stream habitat, expand habitat near and around cold water refugia so it's capable of holding more fish, and expand the complexity of plant communities around the waters of the Scappoose Bay watershed. Noticing I said Scappoose Bay Watershed Council, but I mean the physical geographic thing that is Scappoose Bay watershed, not just the council. We like plants around us in our office, but you know, the watershed's a lot bigger. So yeah, I mean, this is like, we're just looking at continuing. I think maybe this is shifting a little bit. There may have been other considerations we would make in terms of how we're prioritizing project, just simply looking at like, what is a project that gets us a lot of bang for our buck in terms of opening up more stream miles or increasing acreage of high quality habitat. I think we're recognizing now, and when we look at some of the next steps, for the restore bucket, you'll I think see this really implemented as like, we also recognize now that as conditions continue to change, stream flows change, hotter, drier conditions start to exist, as weather patterns change, that's going to mean changes for our streams. So not every project that we could do today might have an impact into the future, or that impact might be erased by some shift in stream flow or water conditions or things like that. Or you know, we might have a stream that has a fish passage issue, but you know, it's warm and only going to get warmer, and we might not be able to generate the restoration need to control the temperature of those streams. So really using that information to help guide our prioritization. We want to make sure that not only are we opening up more miles of stream and increasing acres of high quality habitat, but when we do those things, they are going to be resilient and adapted to future conditions. So we're doing things that are going to matter today, but also matter 20, 25, 30 years down the road. And so one, we really want to be transparent and help the community understand where we've been. And I think Sophie, who's on this call, has done a lot of work to help capture a lot of this for us, but create a dashboard that tracks important restoration metrics, including barriers removed, miles reconnected, stream miles with increased habitat complexity and access, so that we can really share the work that we've done. I think through various reports and things like that, everyone's kind of seen some of that, but really wanting to put that front and center and really communicate that. We're going to take another look at sort of the fish passage barrier priority list that was created a number of years ago. Are there reevaluations that need to be done on some of the prioritization? If we still see high priority barriers that like weren't restored, because this is probably a place where we made the most ground covered since this report was developed, is why wasn't this able to be, why wasn't this barrier be able to be removed, and is this worth revisiting given like current prioritizations and things like that. And then this is like, again, you'll hear more from Rochelle, but identify stream reaches and develop projects, develop a strategy to identify important areas of cold water refugia and have a greater understanding where increasing water temperatures may become too great to support high quality habitat in the future, so that we can better prioritize and identify projects and the development of those projects. So again, this is something we would probably need support on developing some of those understandings, but and then leverage our partnerships to increase the size and scale of projects and increase and improve the quality and consistency of monitoring over time. And I think this just speaks to the fact that we've seen the proof on the ground, whether it's working with Dave or Jim or municipal partners, we get the most work done when we're working with multiple partners and agencies. It really shows the level of support for these projects that is enticing to OWEB and others who help fund and support this work. So any questions about Restore? Yeah. And I think I just will hone in on one thing, because I know it's something that Jim has talked about. I think how we can really get information that is specific to this watershed and not just part of like a larger geographic, like modeling or something like that, but the deeper down we can dig. And then I know we'll speak to some things that Rochelle wants to talk about, which is like monitoring and how do we get good data and understand what's really happening here. So.
Quick question. I don't know if this is getting into the weeds a little bit too soon in your presentation. Nicole Howard with Department of Forestry. Funding. Are you guys having any uncertainty with projecting funding into the following fiscal year, I guess?
No, are you referring to like with federal funding and things of that nature? Most of what we do is state funded through lotto funds with like OWEB and other state agencies. We also go for other grants, and we work with like the local municipalities. We have some agreements, and so that helps with some of our staff time. And then we have our native plant nursery that helps with match in some of these grant opportunities. A little bit. It's mostly just outreach, but no, our funding is projected to be stable. We haven't had, or we didn't have during all of this any federal funds. So currently right now everything's stable.
Main reason I ask is, obviously federal funding uncertainty, but I know, and I've heard murmurs, and the direction I've been given with our SFISH grant is to slow down on the narrative, because ODF is in austerity measures and we're trying to figure out ways to cut. And that's sounding like one place we may not have funding available coming up.
Okay.
Looking for if there's SFOs, small forest landowners that want to do restoration projects. I'm trying to dial in on where funding might be more of a secure source, since ODF may not have that available coming up.
Yeah, I will say that a lot of our projects, similar to most organizations, right, don't happen overnight. So it's typically a like 1 to 2 year process to get a project off the ground, just depending on, the infrastructure involved around that landowner. Most forested things can move a little bit quicker, but we do have the ability to go for different grant sources and things like that. And that doesn't with ODF and W and OWEB and things of that nature seem to be really stable and moving their grants as normal.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think it's good feedback for us to get also from a watershed council perspective, because I think while like we're fortunate in that lottery dollars do fund a lot of OEB's work, and that might be a more stable bucket, our growth opportunities really are aligned with identifying new sources of revenue, like new sources of support for projects and things like that. And so having a good understanding of like what you're seeing and what other agencies are seeing is really really important for how we think about where that may come from and where those opportunities may lie. So I think that's a good dialogue, you know, just a good note for everybody to continue that. So
That might be a good thing to bring into, sorry, Andy, just to interrupt
No.
a sec, just for, you know, the grant funding, because that can be a challenge, you know, maybe thinking in the future, having some sort of a subgroup or something, you know, folks, it sounds like there's some Department of Forestry, other people on board where they can say, because I know the S-Fish, we used that for another basin, and it was a great program. It was really awesome, really easy to get stuff going. And, but yeah, we were told the same thing. There's millions of dollars there that will not be available this year, but also there's the PFA. So there's still quite a bit. It might be a good chance for everybody to just talk more, you know, have that conversation, which we already do, but you know, more as a group.
yeah,
I also want to like clarify that I haven't been told S-Fish is going away. I've been told, in the direction that I've been given, is those funds are not going to be as secure this year. So projects that were already in the and works have a higher possibility of potentially moving forward. But new S-Fish projects, people that are looking to get that grant money secured moving forward, that's where that holdup is, from what
Yeah.
and so it's
Yeah,
not that it is going away and that program's going away.
No, hopefully not. And that's what I was told too, is I think that you still, if you have a project you think is a high priority, and we talked about this, Rochelle, already on one of the projects, is that we still want to submit it. You still want to get it in the chain, because the higher up it is, ultimately when they start funding it again, you'll have a better chance.
Mhm.
yeah. I think the other quick point on that, and we'll talk about this more later in education engagement, but I do think it speaks to the competitiveness of restoration grant making at this point in time, from not just, you know, ODF, but OWEB and other agencies. And so it does speak to our prioritization on partnerships and bringing more people into these projects, because I think that is a competitive advantage when OWEB or whatever, whoever might be making those grant decisions is looking at grants. How engaged is the community? How engaged are other partners in the project? That can literally make the difference between even being recommended for funding, let alone like where you fall on the priority list. So I think that's something that, you know, Rochelle and the board are really paying a lot of attention to, is how do we really engage all of you and other partners in these projects. So great. Preserve 5-year tactics and next steps. This is like, again, we're excited about this work. I think this is an area we definitely see for opportunity and growth. But this is work with the cities and county or other government entities to ensure that existing natural resources are managed in a way that supports the health of the Scappoose Bay watershed. This is our IGAs. So we want to expand opportunities with our IGAs in cities and counties. And those are always ongoing. And look for new opportunities, you know, whether it's just where those opportunities may be. Scappoose, St. Helens, Columbia County. Those are the 3 government that we work with primarily on that. So how do we formalize some of that? We have opportunities. We're doing a lot. Rochelle can speak more to that. I think it's really exciting. And then enlist private land and property owners in long-term stewardship of private conservation lands or project sites that support the health of the watershed. Again, this is really about developing a long-term strategy to work with property owners on sites where restoration has occurred, to make sure that there's some stewardship when like handoffs happen, or property exchanges happen. And so how do we utilize the council to help train people, to help educate people, to make sure that those things can happen. So it's really easy for a cooperative landowner to sell, and then all this, you know, you're rebuilding a whole relationship. So what are some strategies we can use to make that as easy as possible for everyone? And then and that those sort of serve as like, that's where what we're the next steps and what we're working on there. There's not another slide for this one. It's just all in one. And then finally, educate, engage. And again, this is something we've talked about wanting a lot of input on and feedback on. Increase awareness in the community of the watershed, what it means, what the benefits are, what a healthy watershed is, develop a deeper partnership in the community to increase local support, find opportunities for greater engagement with our partners and advisory council. Again, speaking to that notion that a competitive advantage of councils is how we're building out partnerships in the community and bringing more people into our work and projects, and then building meaningful partnerships to increase the use of traditional environmental knowledge in the protection and restoration of our watershed. Those are the goals, tactics, and next steps. This is a really easy section. They're all aligned. And so we can look at either this or the previous one around working with counties and cities, but would love some feedback on where you think there's opportunities for either engagement and education, or to increase partnerships to preserve what everyone's already working to preserve and protect.
For me, the things that pop up in my head with the city of St. Helens is a lot of it is about this year. We have to implement our plan for our temperature TMDL requirements through the state and DEQ. So that's a big ticket item for us. And I don't know if any of our engineering department has reached out to any of you guys about this program.
They haven't, and Buck, I would love to talk to you. I'm also working with the city of Scappoose on this. I wasn't able to attend the last DEQ TMDL update, but I have those recordings and I plan to watch them. And I'm familiar with writing like some plans for DEQ, like for water quality monitoring. But I was looking at the possibility of what that would look like to help the municipalities. So if you or your engineering department want to reach out, once I get through some of that material, I will know exactly how helpful I can be for your department, whether or not you need help writing it, which is what I'm looking at, whether or not these plans are something that I can assist in writing or coming up with templates and like what those will look like.
Yeah, that'd be great. Sharon DeRoe is our engineering manager, and she's pretty much running the show on this. I don't know where she's at with it. I know she has communicated with some other people, especially with the county. And I know the county is going through the same thing, and Dave Suk is doing the same thing. So, yeah, you guys may be a great resource for us to reach out to for help with that. So that would be a great thing. And also, along with other things we've done in the past that are helpful through you guys, is still, you know, I know we didn't renew our IGA this year because of funding and all that stuff, and hopefully that will all come back. I'm pretty positive that it will return. It's just kind of didn't look good to the citizens when we're cutting certain things, but we're doing these things. Our plan was to still utilize you guys. It wasn't that we were just throwing you to the curb.
Oh no, we've still been doing all the same things that we
Yeah.
normally do. It was, we completely understand.
Yeah, and we still have the same, you know, you guys know more of the issues with all of our invasives and everything than we do. So it's good to have you guys on our side.
Yeah, but I'd love to talk more about the TMDL stuff. I know that there's like inventory components of some of that. Sophie, or GIS technician, I'm still like working with what that'll look like and what our team's ability to like help and or like help with you like the municipalities teams. But I think that these conversations will be great because I know that it's good to think about the county too, because I know that the county has to write one independently and nobody's reached out from them either. So I'll do some outreach regarding that. I've already been in having conversations with Dave Suko about the city's stuff. So no, this is all great. And we love our partnership. So any other questions? I think Andy, did you have a couple more slides? Sorry.
Yeah, I think I just one more substantive slide and then a thank you slide. So I think two more
Well,
slides.
and then then I can get my work
And then
plan up.
Rochelle, yeah, you can get yours fired up. So I think just a few other things that we're mindful of that I think just you may be interested to know, we're thinking about and working on. Certainly, if there's any input into these, I know many of you have partnered with many watershed councils and you have work across the state. So one of the things that our strategic action plan is very much focused on the health of the watershed itself, right? That's the role of the strategic action plan and the watershed council. It's not like a full, strategy for the whole totality of the organization. So we are thinking about, as a board, organizational development planning. How do we expand our board? How do we expand our advisory council? How do we make these meaningful? And so how do we promote and support the health, not only of the watershed, but of the organization itself, whose job it is to support the health of the watershed? So we're thinking about organizational development and planning. We also have, I think a lot of we've encountered our nursery, the strategic action plan. While I think there's things that we put a lot of the nursery into, we are looking at developing a plan just around, like, what does the future of the nursery look like? Where are the opportunities for more community engagement, more opportunities providing plants, more opportunities to bring more people in through that? We see that as a really important pathway on that education and engagement side, as well as just our work propagating and expanding the presence of native species across the watershed. So a lot of opportunity there. And then community profile development. We talked a little bit about understanding historic patterns that have led to impairments in the watershed health, but also understanding more about the community itself, who lives here, what do our communities look like, just to better understand and really connect the people of the area to their watershed. So, and I know some of the cities and counties have some of this already, so maybe when we get to this on our action plan, we'll be reaching out for some help there. So, and with that, I'm done. Thank you all for listening to the president's talk on the strategic action plan of our watershed council. And I will turn it over to Rochelle to talk about what we're doing right now and how you can help.
All right. Once you take down
Yep.
yours, I'll
Stop sharing.
okay. Let me share mine. Let me see if I can do. Okay, and then I can see you guys still. Everybody see my presentation here? Awesome. So my work plan is kind of just talking about the active projects that are kind of on my list or in my preview. This probably doesn't include everything, but it includes 90% of everything, and then our partnerships and what's kind of going on with those over the next biennium with them. And so one of the large project that I've currently gone out for a technical assistance grant for is the Posey and Vlotten property. This property has 1.5 miles almost of creek of South Scappoose, and it's really interesting because it has and it kind of cut it off here, but it has Mud Creek flowing into South Scappoose, and it also has Salt Creek, and Salt Creek has 7 miles of potential salmon habitat, but there is a perched and failing culvert on this property as well, right at this junction. And so this property is going to be really interesting. My hope for it will be that we will be doing work during the in-water work of 2027. So my hope is that if we're successful in getting technical assistance funding, that we can get that done and go for fall restoration grants, and then get some in-water work done in 2027. It is a really awesome, unique property that the landowners recently acquired in February, and I started immediately working with them. They are already starting to manage the invasives on the property. It had a lot of poison hemlock. It had a lot of Japanese knotweed. It still has a lot of Japanese knotweed, but they're starting to work on those things, as well as like we're working on all of the restoration components for this project. There we go. Another project that I'm currently have currently gone for technical assistance for and stays in my purview is this South Scappoose and Raymond Creek confluence. This is a little bit more of a complex project because where it's located on Raymond Creek and South Scappoose is considered anchor habitat. There is a good chunk of anchor habitat within this section of the creek, but also there's a lot of landowners and there's a lot of infrastructure and there was previous designs that were done. However, they had a lot of infrastructure components in them of bridge removals that weren't as necessary and some habitat components that OWEB wasn't fond of, like moving the stream, that the landowner also wasn't okay with moving it into the middle of their agricultural field. So I've taken this project, I've doubled probably the amount of landowners that are currently involved, which are all in red. We have probably about 15 interested landowners, working with all of them to really try to get a project going here. There's a number of things that can be done for habitat improvement, including riparian expansions, floodplain reconnection. There is landowners that are willing to allow some flooding on their property, or like looking at where the bank would be on the opposite side of the river with some of these larger landowners. There's other conversations. Um, there is infrastructure that is in jeopardy, such as a septic leach field that has the bank that's eroding in that section. There are people's wells and other things that are going on here. This is also unique because just upstream on Raymond Creek from this, on one landowner and BLM and Warehouser property, it was like a large landowner, BLM and Warehouser. We were able to do 1.5 miles of large wood in 2024 and completed a large riparian planting that planted over 6,000 plants. So we're hoping that will make an impact in the flooding that these landowners experience. If some of them get more than 2 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, it's flooding driveways, and like their homes are in jeopardy, things of that nature. So this section is like really in need of some support in a lot of ways. This is one of the projects that I've been working on since I started. And then one of the things that I've been when I started, I was working on with Jim and Dave, and I've been circling back to, I've reached out to Dave and we're looking at some surveying. I do have an open permit with Rayonier as well, but this is a large chunk of South Scappoose in the upper portion of this estuary that would have about 4 miles of potential habitat that could utilize large wood, potential for riparian planting, um, things of those varieties. So this is one of my hopes, to go for funding, look at whether or not this larger project would need to be phased or not, but I'm hoping to get this project going for my 2026 funding cycle. And then a tributary of South Scappoose is Lazy Creek, and or Lacey. It's very interesting that the locals call it Lacey Creek, but it was labeled Lazy Creek on maps. I think if Matt Walker were here with BLM, he'd have more to say about that story. But it's lacking large wood as well. And so this area is about 1 mile of stream length. It could be cool water refugia, and just getting up and doing some surveying, and but we do have some larger landowners, and so Rayonier is a new landowner for us to work with, but we have done quite a bit of work and are really familiar working with Weyerhaeuser and BLM. Another project that is in discussions. What it fully looks like yet um, is still in talks, but there are two fish ladders, one on South Scappoose and one on Gorley Creek, and really looking at maybe improving those structures. I have worked with our engineer to get like a design budget. This was kind of in part with those other two projects, looking at the South Scappoose as like a whole. So this one is one that is in our preview to like look at. This I'm going to be working with the city of Scappoose on because this is on their property, and really what is going to depend on like what their long-term goals are with these systems. So all of those conversations are still in the works. So we do small grants as well, and they just changed the rules, and the biennium was just is just like coming forward. We're still like having our conversations as a small grant team. Small grants are in teams. All of that paperwork is just like starting to go out. We're starting to finalize stuff, but it's fun because they actually changed the rules on some of that. So OEB like updated, and I think municipalities and schools now can qualify to be within this group. And so I'm looking forward to like working with local partners either to do more work in some of these areas with this grant program. Small grants were previously $15,000 for a project on a private piece of land, and now they are up to $20,000. So that was a good boost. It really helps with invasive removal and riparian plantings. Maybe now with that increase and a little bit of funding could do, maybe some excavator work or some smaller infrastructure components before it was a little bit harder within that budget to do some of that. So we have some other potential projects coming up, and one of the next small grants I'll be looking at, and why I feel like they're important for landowners, especially, is when you're on smaller sections of the stream. If you're not tied into a larger grant, it can kind of be hard to get some work. So this is a property Kristen person that I am going to be applying for a small grant for. The property doesn't have the stream doesn't have much inundation. It's pretty nice. Side of the bank, it's starting to get some erosion on the this side of the bank, and it will continue to on the side that doesn't have very much vegetation. There is on the other side of the stream away from the home, there is on the south side, there is some Japanese knotweed, some other invasives that can be treated there. We are looking forward to working with the landowner. This one, the landowner is also willing to expand the riparian buffer. They're but the stream length is less than 0.1 miles, but this is still on South Scappoose, and this is still a part of our greater picture. So having the small grant program, I feel like, is really important to be able to help some of these landowners on these smaller parcels that still want to do work but maybe aren't connected to the larger projects at that time. So, and I think Amber's on here, so Amber can correct me if any of this is incorrect, but we're working with the Columbia Soil and Water Conservation District. At one point, the Scappoose Bay held the county weed grant that we used to go for. The Soil and Water Conservation District kind of took that over when we had some shifts over COVID, and we're partnering with them because we're more in the center of all of the partnerships to kind of take the grant kind of back, since it's a partnership weed grant is kind of how that grant is shifted. And so this will continue the work that the district's done on garlic mustard, policeman's helmet, spurge laurel, that was previously done, but we'll be expanding into to include some of the work that we're doing within some of our other partnerships, which includes the purple loosestrife. that we have been working on with West Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District to remove. About 3 summers ago, we did a big aquatic weed survey of the bay. And since that summer, we've been working pretty diligently to treat the purple loosestrife, and it has been really successful. Actually, this next year, we'll probably only need to do a small spot treatment, and purple loosestrife won't have a foothold in the bay any longer. So that's really good. This summer, doing the purple loosestrife, we found some wool grass, which is a species that is newer to us, but we plan to include in this grant some efforts for surveying, and then creating like the removal planning. And then we do acknowledge, and I'm working with the district, both districts, and I have been reaching out to the North Coast Invasives Coalition and a number of other organizations that Japanese knotweed is a huge problem. It's a huge problem for a lot of other organizations, and funding's a little bit harder. We think we can at least get some surveying and mapping done, and maybe we can do some targeted outreach and help landowners try to control this. We'd really like to eventually have maybe some sort of program, but funding for Japanese knotweed alone is kind of hard, but it is a big issue in our county and in our watershed. Um, Highlighting the city of Scappoose partnership, we're working with the city to continue work on South Scappoose. We did finish the Reach F parcel, or EJ Smith parcel, um, along South Scappoose, which was an extension of Veterans Park, where we did bank laybacks, inlet flood bench creation, some large wood there, and we did a large riparian planting. It's about a half a mile of work that was done during the water work window of 2024. We're working with the city to do Chief Concomly bank laybacks. That is directly across from our Veterans Park site that we did in 2018. I'm working with the city to help them do permitting for that. They're doing the work in-house, and then I'm working collaboratively to look at if there are other funding opportunities, and also working within our partnerships like with LSEP to help with the planting for that. We will then work on Creekview Park, which is another section downstream of this, that is on South Scappoose as well. There is also in need of bank laybacks and riparian planting. It's pretty incised there. And then we continue working along the CZ Trail, removing invasives and planting natives, continuing all of our other things. This is where we're also starting to talk about the temperature DMDL, which it sounds like Buck, you'll need some, the cities are going to need some help with, and probably the county coming down the pipeline. And then talking about the city of St. Helens, we continue to partner and assist in managing invasives within the natural spaces and riparian areas, working with the Friends of groups. It's kind of exciting because some new Friends of groups might be starting, or there are people that are interested in them. So that's been really fun. And then I have a dream project goal of McCormick Park, just going there. It's so beautiful, and it's a lovely oak habitat on one side, and then has a lovely riparian corridor there on Milton. So it'd be I think that it'd be beautiful for some potential projects in the future. Within, and I mentioned West Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District, we do work within a partnership with them. This is our lovely folks out actually on the bay for our purple loosestrife removal event. We've been working on that purple loosestrife removal. We've been this will also assist our vegetation manager in getting aquatic herbicide license, so that she is currently working on that, and the hope will be by spring she'll have that. She's already forestry herbicide licensed, but this will allow her to do work more on the water for those aquatic weeds. And then we're going to be doing some surveying for aquatic invasives in Gilbert River and Sturgeon Lake this spring and summer, as well as there are conversations. ODA did an SIA of the island with West Multnomah, and so I'm working with Scott Gall there to look at doing some water quality monitoring on dependent on those regulations, and so we'll be taking on some of that as well. And then this is also helping us do our EAB and MOB response planning for when or if they're found in the watershed. We were doing some Mediterranean oak borer trapping at different locations. We weren't able to do that this year just because of like staffing turnover, but I think we're pretty established now. So if ODA offers that again to partners, we are looking at that. We're also looking at EAB either trapping, that's a little bit more complex, and we're, kind of a small organization to do that. But either way, we still are looking at response planning, getting a plan together, and then working with partners on what that's going to look like for the area. Just because we do have a large amount of ash and a large amount of oak in our watershed. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me. Kind of just running through what we've had going on. And then we've mentioned our native plant nursery. Last year, we started a formalized CTE program with the Scappoose High School students. This was a wonderful collaboration. The CTE program is Career Technical Education credits. This allows the students that partake in our teachers program to get dual credits in science and in those career and technical education credits. We have worked to get them out into the community as well. So they're helping with invasive removal, they're helping with mulching, we're doing water quality monitoring with them. On Friday, I think, we're doing tons of stuff with them, but they also help with all of our, like, maintaining our nursery and keeping the plants alive and all of those things. And it's been a huge support. It is also now assisting with the program. Our nursery space is pretty old, and at least the infrastructure from when it was built. I was able to get last year a Habitat for Humanity grant that helped build in this lovely photo, this lovely new shade area, and it helped repair the shade area that was originally there that was far too short. And so that has been a huge help. And then with our CTE program, the high school is able to find some leftover bill legislative funds that was able to help fix some electrical there, purchase the new materials, the polycarbonate for the greenhouse, and things like that. So now we're looking at getting estimates to get some of that on there and to do some fundraising to get all of that work completed by spring is our hope. And then really, I think our nursery is so important because not only does it help with plants for some of these projects, but it's really like a center or like a heart or hub for outreach and education. People that either come to our twice yearly plant sales or that are coming to any of these educational classes that we've been hosting there or that are in need of native plants, that conversation of like, oh, where are you going to plant these plants? Or, oh, what are you looking for? And those conversations typically end up leading to something. People at our plant propagation course that I just taught last weekend, there was one that was in a moorage that we've planted at before, but are willing to let us do water quality monitoring there, and another person that has some need for some riparian help. So it has helped us also lead to some projects and just get like conversations going in the community. And I think that is the end of my slideshow. Um, does anybody have any questions?
It, it's very well done, and I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't touch on too much in the water quality monitoring department. I was actually talking to Andy before this because water quality monitoring for our watershed and with like the Columbia Soil and Water Conservation District, they had a program that has just ended, and I think I've been talking with partners to more assess and like the county, the districts, like what sort of needs what needs and what a program would look like moving forward, right? Because it needs to be like affordable for like a long-term water quality monitoring program. And, I think that that'll consist of, an expanded temperature, um, continuous temperature sensor monitoring and maybe some grab sampling and coli, but we're still playing with all of those ideas. So I think water quality monitoring is going to be really important. Just what that looks like and funding for that's a little bit more difficult, especially if you start upping the number of parameters that are in there. They can get quite expensive to maintain long term. And I think really temperature tells us a lot more with those other parameters. So those are other conversations that are in the works. It just doesn't I don't have anything solid right now.
Rich, I got a question. And this seems kind of a little, I don't know about far out, but maybe a little more difficult. I realize you guys got a lot going on. Have you ever thought about maybe creating a second native plant nursery in the city of St. Helens? Since yes, such a great turnout so far in Scappoose.
Yeah, so we did have a native plant nursery at a St. Helens location. Um, Once upon a time, we did have two nurseries actually. This was at a school property by the fairgrounds. Once there was no longer a school at that facility, it became really hard to maintain, and COVID happened at the same time. So, yes, I would love to expand and work more, and there are more conversations of like being more involved with St. Helens schools, just getting them more out into the community, getting them more involved in native plants, and things of that nature. So I would love to continue those conversations. I don't think in the next 5 years, secondary nursery is the plan, maybe, 10 to 15, just because the program that we've built and maintaining it does take a lot, and there isn't program funding for this type of work. We're able to kind of make this program work because we do the plant sales twice a year, and that kind of helps the nursery pay for itself and pay for the staff that's there with the kids when they're there. Um, but it's still, we're still working on that. So if I could find, grant funding in the future and, we found a better location and, rebuilt a little bit more of that relationship, then I think that that would be feasible.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments or any priorities that they'd like to see the Watershed Council do or anything else? We have just a couple minutes left.
I was just going to add, I think, we've talked about this quite a bit, but the fish passage priorities, I think that would be something that would be good to get on the same page with the Watershed Council and everybody and try to really prioritize what's left. I know a lot of them have been checked off already, but you mentioned a few of the big ones, but I know there's a lot of tributaries out there and that are on the RBA, right? They're identified as just like what is our first, top, and then makes it easier.
Yeah, and I think, Sophie was going through some of our data and even found like another culvert that wasn't done on like Honeyman. So I think they're really going through the list, and now that ODF and W released their re-release like right the priorities, I think
Yep.
over this last summer was when that
Yep.
was released. Going through
Yep.
and looking at that would be really great.
Yeah. Yeah, and that list comes up every 5 years. So, 5 years is a ways off, but it comes quick. So, getting that list updated. So when it comes back around, we're ready, you know, for updating it again. But yeah, we can start checking off some of those as we go.
Yeah, we our board and I were even talking about and this was an idea from Amber, bringing in the county roads and that, and I've had I thought Mike would be here, but we've had like one on not meeting conversations, but like we've been at other meetings and I've brought that up to him, so I think that that would also be good, just bringing in all of the partners wherever um these passage issues are, right? And like determining like why we didn't do anything, or like where they're going, how we can get some of that like goal wise oriented to be slated to be done, right? If nobody's looking at it, we can't prioritize it. So that's great. Okay, I was just giving it another second. Did anybody have any other questions? Andy, did you have any other closing thoughts? I really want to thank everybody for taking the time today to see what we've been up to and to talk about what our priorities are and our strategic action planning. This is really important. It does help us. These plans do help us when we're going for grants to receive them by making some of our projects a priority or prioritizing some of these things.
Yeah, Rochelle, that's really what I want to do. I want to just recognize, I know that everyone on this call has a day job, and sometimes that work takes you into the sphere of Scappoose Bay Watershed Council. So we just really appreciate the extra time and thought that you give to our work and the council. So I know it's a I'm going to assume you all enjoy it, and it's not just something you got to do, but I know it can be another meeting sometimes. So we really, really appreciate your thought and consideration of our work.
Sorry, my dogs.
Didn't even hear him.
Well, with that, I'll stop the recording. I really, again, thank you everybody for your time today. Most of you can reach out to me if you have any other questions. I did take notes, so I will reach out based on what we talked about today about the TMDLs. I had some project stuff. Look out for that, and then just some more planning for the future. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks.
And everybody.
Thank you.